Comic exposure begins in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the Comic Exposure Podcast. My name is Josh, and with me is my hair metal hero, my pop rock protege, my punk phenom, the one, the only.
Here I am, rocking like a Travis Rats. Travis Rats here.
Welcome to the Comic Exposure Podcast, where Travis Rats and I dive deep into graphic novels or trades. And today, folks, you are with us on one of those journeys. We are in deep. We're coming out the other side of graphic novel summer. We're 3 in. This is book 4 of 6 for graphic novel summer. Today, folks, for the pod, we read Beat It, Rufus by Noah Van Sciver. This was put out on, what was this even put out on, Travis Rats? These are the things I should
You
do
have the hard
beforehand.
copy with a nice leopard
Graphics.
velvet print on there. Would you talk to the audience about that book? You're stroking it pretty hard there.
Yeah, a fan of graphics put this out. It is a lovely hardcover. Here's the ASMR for everybody on the pod.
And do the velvet scratch.
Has a velvet lined cheetah print edge on the side of it with an embossed silver Beat It Rufus along the edge there. You can see that.
Beautiful book.
This is the decision we often make on this podcast. Is it cheaper to get it digital or in print? That's often the case that I make because I live in the US and I can get them much easier than Travis. But this was almost the same exact price for the hardcover.
$1 or $2 more.
Hardcover as it was for the soft cover. So I was like, or the digital. And I was like, well, I'm going to get it because I saw it was in hardcover and I was like, well, for the same price, it's a goofy little book to have on my shelf. I'm curious though, Travis Rats, if the colors in your version pop out and the digital version a little better than this. I mean, it's a muted color palette. We'll get there when we get to it, but this is a very dark print is all I can say about the inside. It seems all very, very kind of dark. So this is, again, Beat It Rufus by Noah Van Sciver. It is the 4th book in our series this summer, Graphic Novel Summer, where Travis and I are kind of we picked a bunch of indie graphic novels, nothing that's in single issue run. We wanted some self-contained stories. We've got some interesting reads so far, Travis.
With new creators that we haven't read before.
Yeah. I have one other book by Noah Van Sciver on my shelf. But just ruined that one. I read it a long time ago. I don't remember what it is. I think it was out on Kilgore Trout.
The Burkowski one?
No, he didn't. I don't remember.
He did Fanta Burkowski.
Yeah, that's not. I don't remember what it's called. It's some weird book.
That one looks really good. I really want to check that one out. Fanta Burkowski is another one he did.
Yeah. So, I want Travis. Can you tell the audience what this book is about? What is Beat It Rufus? Give it to us.
Beat It Rufus. So, we follow the titular character Rufus, who is a middle-aged loser who had high expectations in being in a metal punk band in the 1980s. He had delusions of being a rock star in his head, and we open the story finding him at his lowest. He's just been kicked out of his storage unit, which he's been sleeping in. He has a gig to play a wedding. It's the last gig, the only gig his manager can get him, and that sets Rufus off on a road trip journey where he has to try to get to this gig, but it ends up going down almost an existential crisis as he tries to make his way to the gig, gets sidetracked, has different destinations along the way.
Well, all while on mushrooms.
Well, there's some peyote in there.
There's some peyote in there, yeah. So
Josh, pretty good summary right there. Let's give it a round of applause for Travis Rats on that one.
You gave it to it on there. So we've got this character, Rufus, in whose band was called Funky Cool. I like that nothing is cool about this character. There's no, they're like, he was in a band called Funky Cool. They got screwed over by this label. You wouldn't even think that this label sounds good, right? Like the deal they're giving them is terrible. Everything about this dude is just bad. And then there's
he is maybe we'll start here. This is one of the most unlikable protagonists we have probably read in this show.
He's
correct?
Pretty terrible. Yeah. He's like crappy to his bandmates. He's dumb. He like has them blow all their money on a private jet for lyrics like "We are funky and we are cool. We never got good grades in school. Come see us for a good time. 900 beers and a rhyme." Right? Like,
so you say that and it sounds corny, but does it sound as corny for 1980s a fight for your right to party?
Maybe it would be different if I could hear it, right? If I could hear it as opposed to read it,
Yeah.
Maybe the backbeat is something special. It is this goofy journey of this terrible character who only makes bad decisions.
Yeah. By the way, if you think there's going to be a redemption arc for this character, you are sadly mistaken, my friend.
And I think that that's the best part. Travis, I'm going to be honest. I think that's good. I think that's great.
Absolutely.
There's nothing redeeming about it. Like he runs into his old bandmate who he thinks is dead. He doesn't even know that his bandmates are alive, right? Like it's this weird, this weird conceit of how terrible of a human being this is. And we follow Rufus as he like meets his old girlfriend who's like a Christian suburban mom. And he ends up like getting
Plowing
it with her
in
some bushes, right?
Edges.
But like he's traveling in his beat up car. He's like he is in a terrible car accident in his car. He tries to get back to the record label that he believes owes him all this money because his tape had to have sold, right?
Yeah.
Not knowing
the record label in a second here.
Yeah.
I think that the best place to crack open this book for us is why the pick, and then how that subverted or gave us our expectations. So I think we picked this because Indie Summer, the art we're going to talk about, it screams indie.
Yes.
Like we've been using that, we've been using like the barometer of our crumb as a way to talk about is a left of our crumb, right of our crumb, right in the center of it. But as longtime listeners will know that you and I, Josh, are big music fans. We have a history with being in bands. You much more, where you actually had multiple gigs. I think I had maybe 10 gigs total with my high school bands. We did cut a demo, which we'll talk about our bands here in a second on here. But I think that what attracted us to this book, the sense of this looks like a book about a guy who was in a band when he was younger, and what happens when you never let go of that dream. So Josh, I want to talk to you about your dream in high school and your journey as a high school punk rocker. And at any point, what was your vision of the future for that?
I think I was never under any pretenses that we would be huge, right? Like that was not it, right? But to be able to play shows, to maybe put out to maybe get on a label, to go on tour, those were the things that we really wanted to do, right? We played a bunch of shows, we put out some albums kind of by ourselves independently, recorded some tapes. We could put tapes out, we put CDs out. Played all over the place in the Midwest, played in Canada a couple times, but never like what I would call a proper tour, never on a proper label or anything like that. But it was fun. And I don't think we were under any auspices that it was going to be this giant thing. But, you always had that wish like, oh, but what if it just happens, man? Right? Like it was in punk rock in the times of fledgling Newfound Glory and Midtown and a little, just before Fall Out Boy, right? So before all of that sort of wave of emo punk kind of hit, really big. Like we were,
Yeah, you were more like Reggie and the Full Effect
we
kind
were,
of eras.
yeah, we were playing like pop punk stuff. But you know, just having fun, man. But I was in a couple different bands. You can see that, folks, we've put the name of our very first bands on our titles today. If you're watching this on YouTube,
Go ahead and hit him with it, Josh. Yeah.
The first band I was in middle school. I played bass and this kind of like, let's figure out how to play instruments band. It was called the Silo Pipes. Pipes with a Y, Pypes. A bunch of kids out in the country who wanted to play grunge and rock and roll. So I was like in 7th grade, and we all decided like, hey, let's figure out, let's be in a band. Like we were all an actual band, like in school band.
Yeah.
And so like two of my buddy, like one of my friends played drums already. He played drums in band, but had a drum set. And so the rest of us were like, yeah, we can get instruments. So we started a very crappy grunge band in 7th grade. So 7th and 8th grade, I was in a crappy band. We played a couple shows as the Silo Pipes. And then I found punk rock and fell in love with punk rock and just played guitar and did other things. Travis, I like your band name. What's your band name, Travis? What was your first band name?
Mine was first one was Everyone Your Mom. Yeah. So it's
lovely. It's very punk. It's very punk.
We have the who's going to be at the show tonight? Everyone Your Mom. Same story, Josh. Middle school, we were in band class, 3 trumpet players, and then 2 of them, two of them were had older brothers that like would play guitar. And so one day, like, hey, we're going to like the rec center, man. Like we're starting a band. You want to join? I don't play guitar. So like, oh, you just play bass, man.
Yeah.
You just play. I never picked it up before. And one of them was a singer, one was a guitar player. So we went there and started practicing. And then I was like, all right, I guess I gotta learn how to play bass. And then I asked, when I asked my parents for like my birthday, I got a bass, learned it on my own, then switched instruments from trumpet to bass and joined jazz band in high school. And then got way into punk rock and was just, Everyone Your Mom, we were playing covers, but then I had a different band my junior and senior year where it was just me writing. Actually had some decent guitar player and a fantastic drummer, and I would play bass and sing. But I just remember junior and senior year, I was writing, like, songs were pouring out of me. And to be honest, like I don't have the talent as a musician or a singer to like get it well. I'm like, I was like looking objectively at like what was coming out, like pop punk, Miss T Experience and shit like that. And I'm like, oh man, this is a career. Like MTX doesn't, this. So for a while there, I was like, what if I didn't go to college?
Yeah. No.
20,000 yen, which is $200. And we got to be in the studio for an hour, record a live demo, just straight on cassette. Yeah. And then we digitized it later. And it was just like, you get one shot at every song. And we played like 8 songs just live. And that was our album. Yeah. I loved it, man. And I missed that. And so when we got to this book, I was like, oh, maybe it's going to be about something like about like what it's like to be in a band and stuff like that. And it turned out to be something different that was a little bit darker and a little bit more like satire, the whole rock star in your head idea. Which I very much was at that age. But this book answers the question, what if you never kick that idea out of your head? What if your parent voice in your head never said, okay, like that is, you're playing the lottery if you try to do this. And what happens if you keep buying lottery tickets?
Yeah, I think I think what we've got with Rufus is this idea of like, he thought they had made it, but they never really made it. Right. And so he's chasing this high of a band that never made it. And he's hoping that like, no, if I keep playing these crappy shows, people know me, people know Funky Cool, but no one knows this. Right. And And it's this idea that he's continually, as we read this book, he feels that he's been continually kind of let down by everyone around him, when in reality, he's the one who kind of screwed everything up. I think that that's the interesting part about this book is you've got him, like, they should never have taken the record deal, right? But he forces his bandmates to take this record deal. And then,
right, because the for the book purposes, audience, it's the record deal is it's a record farm. Give you like 8 hours in the studio, you pump out something, then they make you promote it. So you're buying your own records to like send them out, and they do that for like in the book it says 100 records a month. So if one of them pops, they're going to be set, and if none of them pop, then the bands will be buying their own records to for promotions.
And I will tell you, we put as a guy in a band, we put out a pretty independent CD with some help from a guy who did a very similar thing. Not like we didn't owe him a bunch of money, but he put up the money to record it. And then we kind of split the money to press the CD, right?
Yeah.
And then we just had to pay him back those kind of recording costs, right? But I know it didn't cost, because like I think about it now and I go like, his father-in-law owned the studio, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so like he probably really didn't, the time that he had to pay his father-in-law for us to be in the studio probably wasn't real, right?
Right.
But
it's kind of like a Ponzi. It's kind of like a Ponzi scheme almost, you know?
Yeah. We weren't in giant debt or anything like that. It's not like it costs a lot of money to put any of this out, but I still have that CD, man. It's right here. It's right there, dude.
Oh, nice. Mine is downstairs, but it's burned.
It's a little picture of us right there.
I know it's that was the Peabody's, right?
Yeah. A little CD action there. We put
out a couple of records.
We put out one before that, right? Oh,
yep.
Oh, and
black
then
and white ink, cheaper to print.
A little tape that we made back in the day, man. We cut and folded.
Dude, you gotta now we're just talking off air, but like you gotta send me the digital tracks of that on email.
Hey, listeners, if you want to find this, just go to the peabodys.bandcamp.com and you can find all of these old recordings of us in a band. Because that's my old band. You can find these albums over there if you want to listen to it. But Travis, it is this thing where he's such a he's messed everything up.
Hey Josh, I'm gonna link that in our YouTube site on there.
I like it. Rufus continually messes it up. He like tells the band, "Hey, no, we got to act like rock stars. Let's get a private jet." I'm like, we can't afford a private jet. Nah, go into credit card debt. We're rock stars now. We're putting out an album. If you want people to believe you're this, you got to show them you're that. And that airplane gets in an accident and he believes his bandmates are dead. And instead of ever like looking for his bandmates, he doesn't even know they're not alive. It's this
to be fair, Josh, he was watching that plane and it did explode in the air. So I'm also I would also assume that they're dead. But like, think about newspaper, read some obituaries, and like, you're not going to go to their funerals,
right?
Rufus?
That's what I mean. Like, it is.
But that's how big of a scumbag this guy is.
Yes,
this is the most selfish character I think I've ever read in fiction. Like, he is beyond selfish in this book. Which is really kind of a fun thing to do, is to just, Freud, what is it? The id, the ego, which one?
I don't know. The ego?
Whatever the Freudian concept is, where you're just fueled by your own self-interests. Yeah. This is that taken to use another satire, 11, right? And it is kind of fun to watch this scummy character who's so egocentric in a road trip story. I mean, the road trip Odyssey story is a classic story framework, but what happens when it's done by a character where they're not growing on this trip? The journey is a story framework, take a character and to grow them across the journey, whether it's Odysseus in the Odyssey,
Yeah.
or the characters in the stoner movie Road Trip from like 1998. Like, they grow on a course of these little events, and it's so interesting to see a road trip journey where at the end of the journey the character is immediately right back where they started as far as repeating their same patterns on there. I thought that was so subversive and such a fun ending.
And so he's such a terrible character. It's like, but it's also enjoyable about how terrible he is, because you're like, how can he get worse? And then he gets worse. And you're
what
like,
are some of the things that he did that were like, oh my God, this is ridiculous?
Well, like, he goes to find himself, and he goes out into the desert and goes to like get on mescaline, right? And like, he's terrible to the Native Americans that are like on the land. And then he gets on, and then he goes and takes this bag of mushrooms. And I think like you continually see him, like how he treats his girlfriend. Like, it goes to the flashback where like he's singing this story that this girl is like, oh, you wrote that song for me. And he's like, oh yeah, baby, I wrote it for you. And then it turns out it's the other singer's song about his girlfriend.
He's plugged in the name. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, and you get all these pieces. Like, he goes to meet his, we talked about it. He goes to meet his ex-girlfriend, and then you learn how terrible he treated her, and he's still treating her terrible. And then he goes to the record label, and you find out how terrible he treated his band. And instead of during these flashbacks where we're remembering that, right, it doesn't prompt him to do something different. It just prompts him to dig himself deeper into believing that he was right, and that the world has screwed him over. Right. I think
owes him something. Literally, the record company, he thinks in his head that this Ponzi scheme of a record label, after all these years, has a bunch of royalties for him. Right. And like, immediately as the audience, you're like, well, that's just not logical. So you're watching him just move to this ending that doesn't exist. There's no sense, nowhere in this book is it set up that like when Rufus gets to that record label, he might get that money. No, like, he's doomed from the start.
But it's this weird thing where like he can play music, which is the weirdest piece of it. Like,
what do you think about that? Because I was like, I couldn't tell, because like you said, you can't hear the music,
right?
But he's kind of playing in like open mic nights and stuff like that. We're like, well, there is a genre of that where it's like really punky guys with an acoustic guitar kind of going up and just, belting it out.
Yeah. But then like he plays that show in the middle of all of it. Right.
Yeah.
And it's just him and his guitar, and he summons Satan with his guitar.
Yeah,
and everybody's like, oh, how did he do it? It's like boomer magic. But then you're like, okay, he can really play. So the reason you see that moment and you're like, oh, he does have talent. But the problem is he's such a terrible person that he is the one who's his decisions and his actions allow his talent not to have any power. Right? Because he gets in his own way. Right?
Yeah.
Like, he forces his band on a terrible label. He like can't. He believes he's owed this stuff, so his talent never blossoms.
Which is so interesting, because for so much of the last, 20th century, you have a bunch of artists that are held up as geniuses, that are really shitty people with egos, but everyone's kind of kowtows to it. But he's not let's make it clear, Rufus isn't a genius. So that's the difference. Like, I think if you are genius level talent, then society affords you a little bit of ego or a lot of ego. But when you're just adept, he's an adept guitar player, and he fits into a certain genre. And just like you and I, Josh, with our high school bands, it's I are just, we fit right into the middle of a lot of 18-year-olds with bands.
Yeah.
Then you just fall by the wayside, especially if you keep getting in your own way.
Yeah, and I played into college for a little bit. I had friends who, went on tour and did stuff like that, and I had a kid early, and so I kind of stepped away from it. But like, look, I have too many guitars. I have amps. I still play guitar. I still mess around. I still like write bull crap. But at this point in my life, you're like, yeah, it's more about some people like build. Yeah, it's a hobby. More people, people build model cars or like fix. Like, I think of like, what's your hobby when you're in your 40s? Like, is it taking care of your lawn? Is it restoring an old car? No, it's buying a guitar and playing loud music in my office. Like that's my release. That's my hobby. That's my therapy, if you will. Right. But I think, you mentioned at the end of this book, he doesn't learn. And in fact, it ends with him finding his old bandmate and apologizing for the plane wreck. Right? Like, I'm sorry, I got off the plane. And his friend, like his old bandmate, tries to do him a solid. And it's like, hey, do you want to jam? Do you want to, like, hey, I've got to record this. I do jingles. I do whatever. How about you go ahead and play? And he's like, really? And he's like, yeah, man, I'll even write you a check. I'll write you a check for your help. For
Raisin Bran.
I want to help you out. Right. And so, and this is like literally how the book ends with him going like, I'm going to get the money. I'm going to buy a used car. I'm going to stay on his couch, and then I'm going to steal his shit and pawn it. Like, that's
steal his guitar. Cause a couple, and I was like, as soon as they start his guitar, and I was like, oh, he's gonna guitar is coming back in a big way in this book.
It's such a sleazebag character, but it was fun to spend time with a sleazebag. Right. Cause you could see him make decisions you'd never make and just be terrible. And there's something, but I would tell you, there's nothing roguish about it. There's nothing playful about it. He's just terrible.
No. Yeah. Right? And it's funny. That's where the humor comes from, because there are really some funny beats in this book. At one point, he's trying to steal copper wire out of the studio that he went to find. He shocks himself on there. Or at one point, he's picked up by like a hitchhiker who's like, this is, what's the name of the road? It's like, Bad Luck Road.
Yeah.
He goes, this road's bad luck. He goes, oh, cool. He goes, it's called Bad Luck Road. and he's sitting in there and he's stuck with this kind of creepo of a guy.
Yeah.
So there are some really funny comedic beats that I think that are written really well on here. And so I guess maybe we're kind of switching into talking about art.
Yeah.
Do you think, we talked about this story a lot, about this rock star in your head, rock god in your head idea of a plot?
Yeah.
I think this is the perfect art for this. I feel like it just, I don't know.
It's grubby. I don't know how else, like, grubby. I don't know how to say it. It's like, it's dirty. It's grubby. It's got this sort of like punk rocky feel to it. There's like a scene where he's like meeting he's like met up with his ex-girlfriend. She's like a family and she's got cats, and every panel he's allergic to the cat, and every panel his face gets grosser and
more grotesque. Yeah. He's like,
as he's like
turning red,
as he's like looking at the cat, and you see how gross he gets at it.
Boils on his face. Yeah.
And it's like, this is just dripping from his eyes. And at the very end, he's in the car accident. He's like, his hair's gone. He's bandaged up. He's all beat up. There's something like punk rock about it. Right. And I think as we talk about graphic novel summer, there is something very punk rock about the DIY nature of these graphic novels. Right. Even though some of them are, we talked about that guy's a cartoonist, for the New Yorker. Right. But I think, and the other guy's a film director, right? But there's still something punk rock about going, I'm going to make this myself. I'm going to draw it. I'm going to write it. I'm going to color it. It's mine. And the first 3-4 books that we've read have all been single artist makes a book. So they're all very much, I'm going to tell a story. There are no rules. I'm going to do what I want to do. I'm going to tell it how I want to tell it. It's going to look how I want it to look. And there's something very rock and roll and punk rock about that, right?
Yeah, well, and I think the difference between that and like some of the books that maybe we get sent or something like that is these are craftsmen who have practiced their craft and they just happen to be putting it out independently. This isn't, these books are the case where it's like, oh, I finally sat down and tried to write that graphic novel, and then I found someone who's going to publish it, or I self-published it, and then there's my work, right?
Yeah.
These are people who like will cartoon for like the New Yorker or the Atlantic, or they have previous work. So they're independent from the sake of that self-publishing, not independent from the sake of, well, I've always wanted to publish a comic book, and here's my attempt at it. Right. Yeah. Kind of like the band I was talking about. I'm like, well, we have this demo here. Here's my album. And like, this is a rough draft. This is someone sketching something out. This is someone practicing, and they happen to spend the money to record it. Doesn't mean that you should listen to it or there's any value in it.
But I would even tell is like a kid who grew up listening to like, there was this guy who put on shows, right? And he would put out comp tapes, and you just sent him your demo and he put out comp tapes, and you could buy a batch of them from him for dirt cheap. And then you could sell them at your shows. But literally they had like 30 bands on it, right? 30 punk band, like 15 on each side.
Yeah.
Of the
it's like the Punkorama, right? Physical Fatness,
right?
Go-kart,
but like there were some bands who like you could tell super polished, recorded, but then there are other bands and you're like, ooh, that's rough, but there's something there, right? There's like the diamond in the rough aspect of just doing it, right?
Yeah, that band's got a trombone player that wails.
but there's something about the inherent idea of I'm not a professional yet, or just the inherent idea of I'm going to create something. I think creation in itself is punk rock, right? Like,
and we live in this age, unlike when we were like in the late 90s, where self-publishing, like, of course, you made it, might as well put it out there.
Yeah, because you can.
I often, and listen, audience, we're not talking about all these books we've read so far. These are artists. We're not talking about that. These are practice. Yeah, like these are craftsmen on here, but it does lean into this idea of independent graphic novels. And in the age of self-publishing and the accessibility, and now AI, where even if you don't have the talent to draw something and you're just writing it, you could probably get AI to create panels and stuff.
To steal someone else's artwork and turn it into your own. We're gonna have to
have a whole separate episode on AI comic book art and what the future of that is. And when is Comic Exposure gonna create theirs?
Never. I really did, as someone who's been in bands, who loves music, there was something fun about reading this, but also just a terrible character. The art was the art was fun. It fit. It all felt very punk rock. I mean,
down to the binding of that book, Josh, that you're holding in your hands.
That looks like your shirt. If we just put it close enough to you, it's like just a continuation of the shirt. Oh, look at that. But I had a lot of fun reading it. It took me, I think I read it over 2 nights. Just because I was like, okay, I got a good spot to stop. I'm good, right? But it was, I really enjoyed it. I think what's interesting is, as we're past the halfway point in this, each one of these books has had this similar feeling, but have been completely different. Yeah. Does that make sense? I don't know how else to put it.
I think this is the perfect halfway book because it's incorporated the spirit of everything so far. But it feels middle of what is the extremes of independent graphic novel summer. Right. And I think that's kind of cool. This feels like, okay, this feels independent graphic novel to me. When we read Organisms from
an Ancient
Outer Space, Ancient Cosmos, that felt like a little right or left of this thing. So this felt like dead middle. in the middle of our indie summer here. So I'm looking forward to our last couple of books because I wonder if they're going to bring anything new into the conversation that in our end of summer wrap up is going to really shift this experience of reading independent novels.
I think it's also this idea of like we're in this place, and I think it's funny that this is a book where, and this is going to sound, I'm going to say this and you're going to be like, well, why would I read that? This is a book where the art is kind of gnarly. It's an incredibly unlikable character, right? Like, why would I want to read that thing? Like, the art is grubby. The art is meant to be ugly and gross, and it's a terribly unlikable character, but there is still something like fun about the package of this one. The story is just, it goes from like, this dude's bad to, oh crap, he's very bad, and ends on the note of like, oh, he's a terrible human being, but there's still something fun about reading this journey of awfulness.
To be a weird word to use for this book, but earnest in its depiction of the character, you know?
Yeah. We're like, there's moments where you might sympathize with him, right? And then you're like, and then he throws it away, or he steps on it, or he says something, and you're like, God, that guy sucks.
And now that I think about it, also earnest in that the protagonist kind of reminds me of a shitty Vern Troyer in the Ernest movies.
It's just, it was a fun.
It's good, man. It was good comic booking. I'm midway point on indie summer, and I'm loving everything on here. We might have to change our podcast whole protocol to just indie graphic novel podcast, because every time I open up a book, it's something different, and we will talk more about that in the wrap up. I don't want to. But Josh, tell them what we got coming up next.
Yeah, next book up is Drome. Is the next book. Drome is the next book, and I don't remember the author. Jesse Lonergan, I think that's the last name. Drome is a sci-fi kind of God's creation story, very science fiction-y, and very silent from my understanding. So it'll be interesting for us to kind of, again, explore something new in graphic novels. There is dialogue, but very visual, the book we're going into. So I think that'll be a good one. And then the last book that we're doing, Travis Ratz, do you remember what it's called? It's Mama.
Mama's Calling.
Mama's Calling. That'll be the last one. Mama Came Calling. Ezra Clayton Daniels and Camilla Sucre are the last book. So 2 books left for indie summer. I believe that we're going to get 2 very different books again. And I think,
is that Mama Came Calling? Is that our only book on the list that has a different writer than the artist?
Yes. The only book with not a singular creator. So I
almost want to call an audible and like make it single creator.
But I think that there's something interesting about this process. So you can find all of our episodes over at comicexposure.com or your favorite podcast app. We have started putting these episodes up on YouTube. So if you're a listener and you want to find it on YouTube, Comic Exposure.
You see the sweet shirt.
YouTube. You can see the sweet shirt that Travis is wearing, the leopard print clubbing shirt that he put on just for the occasion today. And then you can find us on Instagram at Comic Exposure, where we post panels, what's coming up, all those things, and then random pulls from my shelf. So if you're like, what are the weird books that Josh has on his shelf? Recently shared the weirdest book I have on my shelf, Time Beavers, where some beavers meet the 3 Musketeers, Abraham Lincoln.
And by recently, we're talking about about a month back now at this point.
No, I just shared it like 2 weeks ago, maybe a week ago.
Yeah, but when this episode comes out, Joe.
Oh, yeah. I guess right.
Also, yes. Check out it's summertime, so this is when we get to have the actual time to kind of move away from work and do things we love. Josh, I'm committing right now. I'm thinking maybe at this point there might be some Josh and I are going to talk about designs. So stay tuned for next episode, because we might talk about where you can get some new designs for some new Comic Exposure t-shirts. Yeah.
All
Josh,
right.
I want a summer break, buddy.
I'm
Creative
in.
juices are a-flowing.
You're in college, you're reading books, you're just,
Yeah.
this is Travis Ratz in his creative mood. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next trade.